Helen Whately is the Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Conservative MP for Faversham. Of course, she joined me early this morning. I started by asking her for her response to the Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden's comments this morning, saying that it's the first time the government is taking action on the knee issue, given it criticised her record in office.
Well, I disagree with him. So, as you said, they're about to spend the best part of £1 billion.
It's not an insignificant amount of money.
It's a significant amount of taxpayers' money on work placements and government-created jobs for people. There's a time and a place for schemes that help people to get into work who are struggling to get work. But the problem is, and the absurdity of this, is just 2 weeks ago, we had a budget from Labour which is forecast to destroy 200,000 jobs. We had a budget a year ago which is destroying 150,000 jobs, particularly jobs for young people in sectors like hospitality, often people's first job. So here we have a government that is destroying jobs by putting up taxes and increasing regulation, now spending some of that taxpayers' money on creating jobs for people who are out of work because of their policies. So that is just absurd. And to me, this is a classic Labour approach, where they think that government has the answers to these problems when actually their government is the problem.
You'll be aware, obviously at the moment, we've got a situation where we've got a difficult graduate job market and a difficult job market for young people in general. And that is obviously being combined with some pretty extraordinary figures. I think everyone across the political spectrum could recognise this. We have the number of mental health, non-physical conditions becoming a larger and larger share of new welfare-related benefit claim. In 2019-20, that was about 28% of new awards were for mental health conditions. By last year, that's risen to 37%. I asked the Secretary of State this. I wasn't entirely sure what his response was, but do you think that we are over-medicalising mental health-related conditions?
There is lots of evidence, and GPs themselves are talking about this problem, that there are people who are being given a diagnosis and essentially being told that they're sick for something which is more the ups and downs of life.
Should anxiety in and of itself be enough to be sort of written off work?
No. No, I recognise that there are young people struggling with their mental health, and in some ways as a society it's a better thing that we are talking about mental health, but it shouldn't be a reason not to work. And this is a very serious problem, that the number one reason for young people not being in employment, education or training, these new people going onto this data set, is sickness benefits, and it's people claiming them for reasons of common lower level mental health problems and neurodiversity. It's things like anxiety and ADHD. And we, the Conservatives, have been very clear, this is the number one thing that the government needs to reform, and we would reform, which is stop getting onto sickness benefits for these kind of things. You are much better off in work.
But you know yourself that even that language, talking about low-level mental health-related conditions, some people find it, criticise you for it. Some people find it very offensive. I note, for example, in your own area, Lib Dem councillor in your own area who has ADHD herself has said that what you said about this is outrageous, saying it's a disgraceful misinterpretation of the day-to-day reality of people with mental health problems accessing support as a sick or disabled person.
Look, there are members of my family with ADHD. In fact, one of the things I first did when I became a Member of Parliament was I campaigned for better mental health care, particularly for people with serious mental illness, because of my experience from members of my family with terrible care in the NHS for serious mental illness.
I suppose it's low level, isn't it?
That to me is the distinction, is that we have to treat differently serious mental illness, things like psychosis, schizophrenia, and anxiety and aspects of neurodiversity like ADHD. Those can't be a reason not to work. And in fact, when the local Lib Dem councillor made those comments and she put them on online, there are a bunch of responses to that, which was literally from somebody with ADHD, people with ADHD saying, hold on, I have ADHD and I work. And I think other people with ADHD should be working. We can't have a country where 1 in 4 people consider themselves disabled and are then receiving sickness benefits. Not right for those people, and it's certainly not something we can afford.
So on other matters, although related to the economy, so I was in the studio last week and your spokesperson at the time, indeed your leader, was also touring the studios, saying that Rachel Reeves had misled the nation over the budget. Now, you'll be aware since then, the Office for Budget Responsibility itself has said that is not true. So would you like to apologise to the Chancellor?
Well, I don't think so. And we saw the chair of the ABR resigning, and then he therefore didn't come and answer questions on this.
No, but the person
Parliament.
who went instead said said that he did not believe that the Chancellor was being misleading. And indeed, she said that the state of the public finances were indeed very challenging. Professor David Miles from the Office for Budget Responsibility also told MPs that her announcement and what she said before the budget were not inconsistent with the situation she faced. So you've got two senior OBR officials there saying that Kemi Badenoch was wrong when she said that the Chancellor misled the country, unless you're saying that the OBR are themselves misleading the country.
I think it's a difficult thing, and that is unfortunate to see the OBR being dragged into politics here, where what the OBR is meant to be doing.
They've just been asked a question and they've said
is giving people the straight analysis on what the implications are of government policy for the country's finances. But I think what people can see here with Rachel Reeves is that she has on many occasions said one thing and actually the situation has been another. So, for instance, if you look back at her first budget where she whacked up taxes by 40 billion, and she said she wasn't going to do that again. She wasn't going to come back for more. Then what did we have at the last budget? We had her putting up income taxes.
And that's fair enough.
Had her putting up taxes by 26 billion.
And that's totally
pounds.
fair enough. But your leader said something specific. She made a very serious charge. She said that the Chancellor misled the country. And you have the Office for Budget Responsibility, who are, the independent watchdog for these things, saying she didn't. So either you're saying the OBR is being lent on, or are themselves misrepresenting the country, or your leader was wrong. Look, it's one or the other.
So I think the OBR has been put in a very difficult position by all of this. And I think if you look back and see some of the things that Rachel Reeves said to the country and when she woke everybody up to make that speech, when she made that speech at sort of 8 a.m, when people were having breakfast, to say about how the situation, the financial situation was so bad that she was going to have to put up income tax. But she didn't say the other side of the story. So that was then she talked about the downgrade in productivity, but she didn't say about how actually government revenues are increased because of inflation.
So
she didn't set that story out. I don't want to keep dragging the OBR into these political questions, which are not giving you the answer you're looking for, but I do think that Kemi was right to call Rachel Reeves out for misleading the country, and I think she's right that Rachel Reeves should resign.
When are the defections from your party to Reform going to stop?
The fact is that Reform and the Conservatives are different. And we have seen some people, and we have seen, I know the defection that you're referring to.
You this week.
So, and sometimes people ask me, would I go to Reform? My answer is a hard no. Why?
Because you almost gave us a scoop there.
Reform simply doesn't have the answers to the country's problems. I understand, I talk to lots of people, how angry they are at some of the things that happened under Conservative time in government, particularly towards the tail end of our time through and after the pandemic. People are angry about that. They want us to recognise the mistakes that we made. I do recognise them. But our job now, my job now, is to hold the government to account and set out how we would, at the next election, then come into government with a plan to fix the problems. I hear nothing from Reform that makes me believe they have a plan to fix the problems.
But this week we've seen a few former MPs of yours defect. We've seen a former Conservative donate 9 million to Reform. I mean, what message does that send about the relative health of the two parties?
Look, we know that Reform drops these things out whenever it looks like Conservatives and Kemi Badenoch are doing well to try and affect our momentum.
Well, to be fair, that was an electoral commission. That was the electoral commission that
but there's a pattern. There's a pattern there. I mean, Kemi did a really good job at the budget, showing that Rachel Reeves has got things very, very wrong for this country. And that's an example of what Kemi's doing, what I'm doing. We're not focused on what Reform is doing. We're focused on what our job is to hold the government to account, to point out what they're doing wrong, and to come up with a better plan for the country in the future. Clearly these donors MPs don't think you're doing very well, because they'll stick with you otherwise. Well, they say stick with us. And I say to voters who are going, how are they going to go at the next election? Look at the work that we are doing. Now, Reform, on the other hand, they've announced that they're going to lift the two-child benefit cap, and they would be expanding the welfare state. We're very different from that. We're very clear. We would control public spending so that we would be able to bring down people's taxes and grow the economy. It's a different offer.
Do you think Nigel Farage should apologise to those people who've accused him of being anti-Semitic to them at school?
So I think Nigel Farage needs to give people a straight answer on this question. And From what I've seen of catching bits of his press conference, it doesn't look like he's giving people a straight answer. That's what they want, is they want politicians who are straight with them. That's what he should do.
Do you think there should be a statute of limitations on these things in terms of stuff that was said what was it, 40 years ago or whatever it was?
I mean, I think that the reality is, and it's particularly the case for younger people now, they've been on social media, that there will be things around that people have said that their views may change. And I recognise for Nigel Farage, it was a long time ago.
Is it concerning that he's dismissed these allegations of anti-Semitism?
Well, that's, I think, I think it's serious, and you shouldn't be dismissive, even when something was a long time ago. You shouldn't be dismissive, but you should give a straight answer to it.
Do you welcome your former party leader Liz Truss starting her own TV show?
Well, I don't think I'll be watching it.
You don't think you'll be watching it? You're not interested in the pearls of wisdom that your former Prime Minister might have for us?
You know what? I have a job to do, and my priority is working on the right answers for our welfare system, fixing the mess that Labour is making of our country.
She says that she was brought down by the deep state, a deep state which includes your party, and she's been proven right about everything. Would you agree with that?
I don't agree with that. And as I said a moment ago, we have to recognise some of the mistakes that we made in government. One of the things that people are angry with us was about changes of leader, which are distraction from the job that we needed to do, which was getting on and solving some of the problems of the country, particularly as we came through the pandemic. The job I have now, and the job we as the Conservatives should be doing, is holding the government to account on all the things they're getting wrong now.
Is she all right,
and
do you think?
Coming up with the right answers. And I say that, I talk to people who are literally despairing about what the government is doing and what the state of the country is, despairing about the future for their kids, for their grandkids. That's what matters, is fixing those problems.
Is she still a Conservative Party member, do you know?
I don't know.
Would you...
I think she is.
Do you hope she is? Or do you think she'd be welcome elsewhere?
I don't think Liz has done anything to be chucked out of the Conservative Party, but the fact
she's talking about the deep state. It's very conspiratorial, isn't it?
We have a job as a Conservative Party to hold the government to account and to come up with a better plan for the country at the next election. To me, this is really, really important. Let's talk about that. I mean, we have a situation, and the government's talking about today, I talk about it,
if it's true,
1 million young people not in education.
But if it's true she was removed by the deep state, I mean, that's really important, isn't it?
I think, look, usually conspiracy theories generally aren't a good way of spending time exploring them.
Is she a conspiracy theorist?
As I said, my job is to look at welfare and how we fix a welfare state, not into questions of what Liz Truss is saying about things.
Do you think she's a conspiracy theorist?
Honestly, I said I'm not going to get into what Liz Truss is saying about things.
And you won't be watching her show?
I don't think so.